On the edge of the Philippine Trench, where the ocean floor drops into one of the deepest abysses on Earth, an American aircraft carrier lies twisted in the darkness, 15,538 feet down. The ship sank in just 30 minutes. On October 25, 1944, killed by a weapon that technically did not have an official name yet, a tactic so desperate that historians would spend decades debating whether it represented military innovation or the death rattle of a collapsing empire. What turned this one escort carrier into the first major warship ever destroyed by an organized kamikaze strike? And why did it take 75 years to find the wreckage of the ship that changed naval warfare forever? The answers lie in a story that connects a prefabricated Kaiser shipyard, a 23-year-old Japanese pilot named Yukio Seki, and the most lopsided naval battle in modern history. Just so you know, genuine wartime footage and photos of the exact ships and aircraft are rare, so some of the visuals in this video are illustrative, using similar vessels and deep-sea scenes to help bring the story to life. May 2019. The research vessel Petrel pushed through the waters off Samar Island, scanning a section of seafloor that plunges to depths where most Pacific wrecks could never reach. When the sonar returns came back on May 14th, they showed an impossible profile, a ship sitting upright at 4,736 meters, nearly 3 miles down. The hull was intact enough to identify, but the midship section showed catastrophic structural failure, the kind of damage that speaks to magazine detonations and uncontrollable fires. 11 days later, on May 25th, the Petrel's remotely operated vehicle descended through the crushing darkness to survey the wreck in detail. What they found was USS St. CVE-63, the first major American warship ever sunk by a deliberate suicide attack, and the vessel whose destruction would prove to Japanese commanders that desperation tactics could work. This was not just another sunken escort carrier. This was patient zero of organized kamikaze warfare. The ship that would become St. Lo was laid down as Chapin Bay on January 23, 1943, at Kaiser's Vancouver shipyard, then renamed Midway, and finally christened St. Lo on October 10, 1944, just 15 days before her death, to honor the brutal battle for the French town and free up the name Midway for a new fleet carrier class. She was a Casablanca-class escort carrier, one of 50 nearly identical vessels built using revolutionary prefabrication methods. She was 512 feet and 3 inches long, displacing 10,900 tons fully loaded, with twin screws that could push her to 19 knots. From keel laying to commissioning took exactly 9 months. Her construction cost was $6,033,429, roughly 1/10 the price of an Essex-class fleet carrier. She was designed to be expendable, built in numbers that could absorb losses. That cold calculus would be tested off the coast of Samar. October 25, 1944, started it as a routine morning for Task Unit 77.4.3, call sign Taffy 3, 6 escort carriers, 3 destroyers, and 4 destroyer escorts were providing air support for the Leyte invasion east of Samar Island. At 6:45 a.m., those assumptions exploded when lookouts spotted pagoda masts on the horizon, Japanese battleships. Admiral Kurita's center force had slipped through during the night. 4 battleships, 6 heavy cruisers, and 11 destroyers bearing down on 6 unarmored escort carriers. The mathematics were simple and terrifying. Kurita's flagship Yamato alone displaced more tonnage than all 6 escort carriers combined. The escort carriers had a top speed of 17 knots, and the Japanese battle line could make 27. Every calculation pointed to complete annihilation within 90 minutes. What followed instead was 2.5 hours of chaos. Taffy 3's commander ordered his carriers to run east, while destroyers charged directly at battleships in suicidal torpedo runs. St. Lo's pilots flew mission after mission, some making dummy runs with empty guns when ordnance ran out, anything to force the Japanese ships to maneuver. By 9:20 a.m., incredibly, Kurita ordered a general withdrawal. He had sunk 2 escort carriers and 3 escorts, but lost 3 heavy cruisers, and believed he was fighting fleet carriers, not escort vessels. Taffy 3 had survived the impossible, But their ordeal was not over. Before we go on, a quick reminder. Subscribing is the simplest way to support this channel. It allows us to spend more time uncovering these lost wrecks and keeping maritime history alive for everyone who loves the ocean. Now let us dive back into the video. At 10:51 a.m., one Japanese Zero, possibly piloted by 23-year-old Lieutenant Yukio Seki, commander of the Shimpu Special Attack Unit, rolled into a steep dive directly towards St. Lo's flight deck. The ship's anti-aircraft guns opened fire, but the Zero never wavered. It slammed into the flight deck at over 200 miles per hour, and the 250-kilogram bomb slung beneath its fuselage punched through the wooden planking. The bomb detonated in the hangar deck, where aircraft were being refueled and rearmed. 90-octane aviation gasoline ignited instantly. Torpedoes and bombs stacked near the aircraft began cooking off in secondary explosions. Crewmen reported hearing deep, thunderous detonations from below. The hangar had caught fire. St. Lo's captain ordered the magazine flooded, but the damage was catastrophic. At 11:21 a.m., exactly 30 minutes after the Zero struck, St. Lo rolled to port and slid beneath the surface, stern first. Of the 889 men aboard, 113 were killed or listed as missing in action. Approximately 30 more died of their wounds in the following days. 746 survived, pulled from the oil-slicked water by nearby ships. St. Lo earned the grim distinction of being the first major American warship sunk by an organized kamikaze attack. She was the proof of concept that convinced Japanese commanders suicide tactics could work. Her loss changed the calculus of the Pacific War and forced the U.S. Navy to develop entirely new defensive doctrines against an enemy who viewed death as a tactical advantage. Finding St. Lo required solving a puzzle that had stumped researchers for 75 years. Survivors reported the ship's approximate position, but approximate in the open ocean can mean hundreds of square miles. At extreme depth, trenches deeper than Mount Rainier is tall, and you have a technical challenge that was impossible until recently. Paul Allen's research vessel Petrel changed that equation. Launched in 2016 and equipped with cutting-edge deep-sea exploration technology, the Petrel could map the seafloor to 6,000 meters, with resolution good enough to identify individual ship classes. The search strategy involves systematic grid surveys using autonomous underwater vehicles towing side-scan sonar arrays, building acoustic pictures square mile by square mile. St. Lo's wreck appeared on sonar on May 14, 2019, in 4,736 meters of water. The acoustic profile showed a hull roughly 500 feet long, sitting upright with a significant debris field, consistent with an explosion and rapid sinking. On May 25, 2019, the ROV descended through nearly 3 miles of water. The video feeds showed a wreck in remarkable condition considering the violence of her death, with catastrophic midships damage, but overall hull form intact and recognizable. Confirming the wreck's identity required matching physical evidence against historical records. The hull dimensions measured from ROV video matched Casablanca-class specifications exactly: 512 feet 3 inches long, with a beam of 65 feet 2 inches. Flight deck configuration, including the island superstructure position and gun sponson layout, matched photographic records of CVE-63. Catastrophic damage in the midship section aligned precisely with eyewitness accounts of magazine detonations following the Kamikaze strike. Structural failure radiating from the hangar deck rather than from an external impact. The wreck's position correlated with historical battle charts and survivor accounts within the expected drift zone. The debris field pattern indicated the ship sank stern first in minutes, consistent with the 30-minute timeline. Specific fittings visible in ROV footage, including the catapult track configuration and the arresting gear arrangement, matched construction photographs of St. Lo from 1943. The Naval History and Heritage Command reviewed all evidence and issued official confirmation. The wreck was definitively USS St. Lo, CV E63. The identification was beyond reasonable doubt. St. Lo's discovery matters beyond solving a maritime mystery. This wreck represents the inflection point where naval warfare shifted from ships fighting ships to ships fighting weaponized death itself. The Kamikaze doctrine that sank St. Lo went on to damage or sink hundreds of Allied vessels, forcing fundamental changes in fleet air defense and ship design that still echo in modern naval architecture. The extreme depth means St. Lo is deteriorating far more slowly than shallower wrecks. She's a time capsule of 1943 shipbuilding techniques, a three-dimensional archive that can be studied by future generations. For the families of the 113 men who died, the discovery provides location. Knowing where they rest brings closure that 75 years of uncertainty could not provide. The ship is no longer lost. The men are no longer missing. Under the Sunken Military Craft Act, the USS St. Lo is a protected war grave. No salvage operations are permitted, no artifacts may be removed, and no disturbance is allowed without explicit Navy authorization. The wreck belongs to the crew who went down with her and to the families who remember their sacrifice. St. Lo and her crew were part of Taffy 3, a force that fought the most unlikely victory in modern naval history and paid for it with blood and fire. They faced battleships with escort carriers, answered 18-inch guns with 5-inch pop guns, and somehow survived long enough to prove that courage can overcome mathematics. The men of St. Lo did not know they would become a footnote in Kamikaze history when that Zero dove toward their flight deck. They were just trying to survive the morning. 75 years later, at the bottom of the Philippine Trench, St. Lo stands as a monument to the price of turning the tide at Leyte Gulf, and a reminder that some battles are won by those who never live to see the victory.